Good afternoon. I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards on Twitter. Currently got around 12,000 followers over there. Most people are just there for the Cheltenham. So if you're a new follower or you're a new YouTube subscriber, you've come at the right time because we're 7 weeks out from the festival. Um, Today I'm going to talk through the Cheltenham blog. So if you're not aware, over on Twitter, pinned to my profile, I've got a Cheltenham blog, and on there it's got all the selections over the last 11 months of the bets I've placed and the reasoning for it. We've actually not done too bad so far in the fact that most of the slips, nearly all of them, are going to the right races, and they've actually survived um, throughout. We lost, well, I thought we'd lost two, and the Brown Advisory, I thought Time Hill, the way he was jumping second time out, I thought no chance that was making it. And that's made a drastic recovery. And of course, Sir Gerhard runs tomorrow in the Turners. So there's potential there. So if you're new to YouTube, if you click subscribe and like, that's much appreciated. And you'll get obviously all the releases as soon as they come out. And over on Twitter, I'm on @riskforrewards. Hard to miss, to be honest. When it's Cheltenham related, I've normally tweeted about it. Anyway, going on to the blog, today I'm just going to go through all the current bets that I've got, where I think they may end up running in the next few weeks, and their chances as they stand in the Cheltenham Festival. So straight off the bat, we're going to start with the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So the only selection I have got listed, which is currently priced at 33 to 1, I put up at 25 to 1. Looked like a good bet when it went into 6 to 1, but now it's back out to 33 to 1, is Jet Powered of Nicky Henderson's. So to put quite simply and keep it short, I'm just going to completely write off that run. The winner, Gitan de Burle, was getting 2 stone off Jet Powered, potential triumph horse, runs on Saturday in the first. But Gary Moore said that horse is an absolute maniac. They weren't expecting him to do that. They didn't, and he was just the one that handled the conditions best. But if you go back and you watch that race and you slow it all down, come into the second last as they come around the bend, they're all fairly close by, and Jet Power has not been hard ridden. And I think if you took that horse out, Nico would have made the effort to win the race. Without actually pushing, like as in without going too far, like as in if he couldn't win the race in the heavy ground, he would have said no. But I think he still would have won it, but it just wouldn't have been overly impressive. But because the winner was so far clear, Nico was just like, okay, no, I'm not even going to bother trying to handle that. Pulled him up, same for another day. And I think you'll see a much better horse next time out. He'll probably dot up in a maiden again, probably a quite high quality one, but it will be an English maiden, so we won't have the same likes of the novices coming over. Will he beat Facile Vega? Probably not. Is he 33 to 1 and Facile Vega's 44 to 6? Yes. So my point is, if you're not on, I'd wait until he's entered up. And if he's entered up in a 2 mile maiden in the next few weeks, and Henderson likes to aim for a place like Newbury, Sandown, Ascot. If he goes to one of those, I would take some 33s because I'll be shocked if he doesn't finish with more horses behind him than in front of him. And the Supreme could cut up to 8 runners. And if you've gone each way at 33s, I'd be fairly confident that he could be in at least the first 4, and he may be in the first 3. And you don't know what Facile Vega is going to do. He could end up winning. So, but obviously, with a view to the Dublin Race Festival, I, for one, will be looking for any sort of bets where you can get Facile Vega to win at the Dublin Race Festival and to win at Cheltenham. I mean, currently he's priced 2 to 5 for the Dublin and 4 to 6. So that works out about 6 to 4, which is absolutely awful. So I'm hoping some sort of bookmaker, like there's a bit of competition over in Ireland, and the bookmaker pushes him to maybe like a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 shot, and we get a little bit more value. But 6 to 4 is so hard, like no matter how good he is, because he hasn't shown anything spectacular. He's not winning like on the bridle, like as in, but he clearly has got all the potential, and he's got superstar quality, and it is a weak division. So he'll be the one for me. But currently, I'm just not keen to start banging on all these other horses. I don't like doing the without markets, as explained the other day. And just on another point, I just want to clear up with people before I start going through this list, is don't let anyone tell you you can only have 1 bet in a race or 2 bets in a race. Like, you have as many bets as you need or as many bets as you want to green your book in a position. Like, you could back 5 horses and it could end up turning your field into an even money shot. But if any of those 5 horses win, you get paid out at the equivalent of evens. But there may only be 8 runners, and you could have the first 5 in the market come the race day. Like, you could be taking 4 to 1 shots, 20 to 1 shots, 50 to 1 shots. You do what you think's correct to get value at the time. Don't let other people say, oh, you've already backed 2 in that race, you can't do that. You do what you want to do. Don't let anyone else say different, and then learn from it. If it works, perfect. If it doesn't, then change it. Okay, so moving on. Obviously, I'm explaining this because I've got 3 here in the Arkle. Now, people at the start of the season, like I put a tweet up recently and said about, oh, these look like the most likely winners, and people were like, yeah, it's obvious, but it wasn't obvious to a lot of people at the start of the season, because the three I've got are John Bon at 4-1, El Fabiolo was 8-1, but I could only get sevens, and Dysart Dynamo was 20-1. So if you've got those three, you're now looking at John Bon at 6-4, El Fabiolo is around fives, and Dysart's around fives. So if they go 1-2 in the Arkle in whatever direction, then you're laughing in effect, because you've then got probably a 6-4 shot, a 5-2 shot, and a 4-1 shot in a race, which could end up having 8 runners. So for me, currently from those, I have had a question based on who do you think is going to win. I think John Bond's a standout for me. I think he's improved so much for fences. But I do think that price will be there on the day, so I wouldn't be in a rush to take it. And obviously we're all on already, but he has really improved leaps and bounds, and he looked good as a hurdler, but he looks superstar quality as a novice chaser. And I'll be looking at ways to get a couple of these in the book in a way that if they were to win the Arkle, to then win next year's champion chase. Because behind Energamine, it's potentially a bit windy. With not knowing where Blue Lord goes, and if Energamine beats Edwardstone this weekend, like, you don't know what's going to happen. So currently, John Bon is a standout for me, but the market tells you that. Of El Fabiolo and Dysart Dynamo, it's very interesting. I think over in Ireland, you're obviously going to find out who the best one is. But I think Dysart Dynamo in Ireland, it will suit him better, because his jumping, he was quick, he was swift, he went from the front, and he was elite. So I think he'll be very off and at him. It's going to really test El Fabiolo's jumping. I think he's got a massive engine to keep up with John Bon when he had such an experience. But the only downside for him is his jumping. It wasn't bad. It was just not as good as Dysart Dynamo's. So if his jumping's improved, they are going to be close. And would I be surprised if El Fabiolo beat Dysart Dynamo? No, I wouldn't. The only surprise I'd say is that if one of those two don't win this, I think those two have it between them. So if you're on all of those, then brilliant. We're laughing, all three currently there. The only issue would be is if obviously one of them flopped. John Bond won't have an issue because he's going to the Kingmaker in Warwick the week after next. So he should win there, and then he'll go after having had the perfect prep, and providing he gets there, that's everything spot on. Fabio or Dynamo, one of them's probably going to higher their colours, the other one will lower their colours. But they could finish 1-2 close up behind each other, or one could blow it to bits, and then suddenly you're talking about getting close to a favourite to John Bond. Either way, those remain my three. I won't be coming off those. And if the likes of Appreciate It, Flame Bearer, even Sir Gerhard, if any of those drop in, it won't be changing. So if El Fabiolo and Dysart Dynamo flopped at the Dublin Racing Festival, it would just become John Bond for me. I don't see between those three currently at the moment, I don't see them not being the Arkle winner. Keep it short and sweet. Champion Hurdle, Constitution Hill, providing he stays fit. I don't like that he's had 3 months off, but at the same time, when the only trial he's got as an option is at Haydock on bottomless ground, I'd rather not see him at all. I don't understand. They cancelled the Sandown Contenders Hurdle. Completely understand that, because it was a bit of a farce. But they've taken away Sandown, replaced it with nothing, and the hurdle trials are at places like Newcastle and Haydock. Haydock is bottomless nearly all year round. Why would you run a champion hurdle horse there? Like I was looking last weekend when they talked about running Haydock, and there was a horse like Epatante, who I'm against currently. I was happy for them to run there, because they're going to bottom their season. They could have a really hard race, win, and then that's their season over. It's only 7 weeks to the festival. So I think it would be bonkers to go there. They should have one on trials day. If they had one on this weekend, everyone would get to see Constitution Hill run over 2 miles, and it'd be another great display. For me, unless he falls or he has an issue coming up to the festival, it looks impossible to oppose currently. And as I mentioned, the Dublin Race Festival, the other selection I've got is Vauban at 12-1. 16s was available, but I just couldn't get it myself. And I think he's got every chance of turning over the other two at the Dublin Racing Festival. Between him and State Man for me in that race, no disrespect to Honeysuckle. But I don't play in the without markets and stuff like that, especially not when my main interest is Constitution Hill, which was at 5-2. Sorry, I didn't state the price, 5-2. And I did tweet that in the summer. Many people did see it. I had people comment saying you can't back a 5-2 shot this early and all of this sort of thing. But here we are now. He's now obviously 1-3, 1-4. And it's not me saying I'm smart. It was just me being honest. This is what I'm taking. If you don't want to take it, you don't have to. I'm not here to argue with people or to persuade people. I'm just straight up sharing exactly word for word what I've wrote on the blog. Onto the Mares Hurdle, and again we're in a pretty strong position here personally for me. I say personally for me, personally for us, because obviously I share all these as soon as I placed them myself. Love Envoy, we've got at 18-1 from her Sandown win and also to win the Mares Hurdle. Now she looks a serious fly in the pack for this race. I love the fact she's won the Mares Novice. Everyone's saying she needs the soft ground. The difference is that the connections were saying that it wasn't the soft ground that was the massive key. It was a step up in trip. So they really wanted the 2 mile 4, and the fact that they couldn't get the 2 mile 4 for the Mares Hurdle or the Mares Novice Hurdle, it was a bonus of the fact that it was heavy ground, which made it more of a stamina test. So the fact here, she gets 2 mile 4 and she's going to get the softer ground. I think she's a massive player. And the way she's tanking through these races, as long as you can keep a lid on it, she is an improver, which is what you want for this. Which brings me on to the other horse, which is Marie's Rock, who also has a lot in similar. And obviously, I've taken 11-4. That was very recently when Epitaph was ruled out. I think she's about 3-1 now. That brings me on to Marie's Rock, and between the pair of them, they are what I call as improving mares. They're not waiting around; they're going forward still. So both of those two for me are massive standouts. And the big key as well is they both beat the boys last time out. So they're not just beating like in small little mares races; they're racing in big hardy races. They both can handle good ground. They both like good to soft ground, and they both like the heavy ground. It'll be at least good to soft because it's the first day of the festival. So if it's that or worse or more testing, then that's going to suit both of them. I completely understand the love for Epatante, but she's not getting any younger. She's not improving, and she's getting battered by Constitution Hill. That can't be great for morale, and she's obviously going to run this weekend. So, of course, she's going to have her chance, and she sets a very high standard. And she was electric at Aintree, but it's not like she's sitting around resting up, ready to go for this, whereas these two are coming in nice and fresh. And the other one, obviously, Brandy Love, I just don't understand how you can back her currently. Like, she's not been seen, she wasn't heard, they've mentioned. It gives me all the vibes if you're just waiting for a message to say Brandy Love won't unfortunately make the festival, but she'll make Punchestown. She didn't make it last year, she may well not make it again. If she does, then I'll worry about her then, because if she goes straight there, then I think the two that have shown their improvement, yeah, I understand Brandy Love beat Love Envoy at the end of last season. That was Love Envoy had been raced plenty throughout the year, whereas Brandy Love went there fresh. So I'm not putting that down to the ground. I'm just putting that down to, and you listen to the trainers' comments, and they say that she should have finished about fifth, and she finished second to Brandy Love that day, and that's just testament because she's such a gritty mare, and that's what I like about both of them. They both find plenty off the bridle. They're not bridle horses, and Brandy Love's obviously also got her quirks, the way she jumps out. Do I think she can win? Of course I do. But there is absolutely no point in me even worrying or assessing it. I'm just playing the race without her. And if she turns up in 48-hour decks and if she hasn't had a run, she'll probably be 5, 6, 7-1. And I'll worry about her then. But currently, no, those two are the two. And if anyone was saying, what should I go on? That would still be. On to National Hunt Chase. So obviously this is going to be a big talking point next week because of the fact that the Dublin Racing Festival. I've got Galliard du Mesnil at 7-1 and Chemical Energy at 9-1. There were 10s, but I could only get 9s. So Galliard du Mesnil doesn't need much introduction, has been here, there and everywhere, running the Irish Grand National, finished second last year. This year form remains solid, but has picked up a Group 1. I would admit that I got a little excited when they won the Group 1, but look back at it now and the race did completely fall apart. Unfortunately, there were 2 fatalities in the race, which is horrible to see in racing. But the horse did stay well, and it was good. It was a good win for a horse that just has been a second, like a horse that loves to come second. So he sets a massive standard for them all to go to because he's a Group 1 winner. But I think he sets a massive standard in this race. If he was to go to the other race, the Brown Advisory, he doesn't. So for me, I think this is a strong case of this is where he should run. Will he run there? I think he will, even though a lot of the vibes are saying no because Willie hasn't got anything for the Brown Advisory. I think in the 2 mile 5.5 furlongs next week, Galliard de Mesna will run. If he runs well and he finishes, like say, in the first 3, or he runs like he needs a little bit of a step up and trip, then that'll be him going to the 3 miler for the Brown Advisory as number 1 representative. However, if he doesn't and he finishes staying on or whatever, then I could easily see him being Patrick's Rise. At the end of the day, like I listened to a few people talking about it this morning, and they were talking about it going off Galliard de Mesnil, providing the likes of Jerry Colomb doesn't run, he could go off 1-2 or 4-7 in this national hunt because it's the end of the day, it's an ACCA day on the Tuesday. And if he did, you think Willie Mullins is going to go 1-2 in the national hunt or say 5 or 6-1 in the Brown Advisory? They want winners. So he was going to go to the national hunt. So I think he's got to go very close to winning over a very shorter distance than what he likes. Because I think he wants 3 miles minimum. So for him to warrant his place. I don't think he'll be winning at the Dublin Race Festival, and therefore I think this will be the play. Would you back him now? No, of course you wouldn't at 11-8. Would I rush to back him with the Brown Advisory? I had a small bet on him just as a cover bet, but I don't think, I think they'll end up with better horses in there, fresher horses. I think it's a weaker Brown Advisory than last year. However, that's not to say that he can't win it. He's improved clearly, but I just think the National Hunt Chase will suit him to the ground. The other selection is Chemical Energy. There's been a lot of talk of Mile of Mission recently, 33-1 into 14-1 after his pretty impressive display on the weekend. It does boost the form of Chemical Energy. I know many people are saying the race fell apart, and the race did fall apart, but it's certainly no negative that he finished 60 lengths ahead of him. That's not like a small deficit, even if a horse runs no race. Like coming to the top bend, when they got to the hill, they were all still fairly close to each other. It was just the fact that once they saw how well Chemical Energy was travelling, they just gave up pushing. It wasn't the fact of like he ran no race and he was pulled up. So for me, I still think the main thing for the National Hunt Chase, the reason why I'd be confident is because it's Gordon. Gordon loves the National Hunt Chase. He targets it every year, and his horses, he's had I think something like five runners in like the last 5 years, and I think only one has not won or placed. So he knows what to run in it, and he only runs one or two. The only fly in the ointment will be if Jerry Colombe runs here, but for me, Jerry Colombe just looks too classy to go here. It sounds stupid. I just think Jerry Colombe will go elsewhere. And when I say elsewhere, I think he'll go to Brown Advisory, and he'd have a very strong chance in there. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do with that beforehand. And just going back to Galliard de Mesnil, there's a lot of chat about Ramilles if he qualifies, which he could because he's entered this Sunday in a race that will qualify him for the National Hunt Chase. But listen to Ruby Walsh the other day. He was saying that he thinks Ramillies likes a shorter trip and just likes to bowl along. So to go up to that sort of trip, it's almost like you're just chucking him in the race because you want to run Galliard and have something for Patrick to be able to ride. So I'm not overly convinced. My gut says Galliard de Mesnil won't do well enough at the Dublin Race Festival, and he won't be in the first two against the faster types of like the Mighty Potters and Appreciate It's and James de Burleys. But of course, I'm only speculating. So at the moment, I've got Galliard de Mesnil at 7-1, Chemical Energy at 9-1, and I'm happy with both of those. I do like Mile of Mission, I do like a few others, but you can't back them all, and you also there's no point you rushing around to try and get everything on side. Onto the Ballymore. We've got Quais du Paris at 25-1. Been out once, won once. Ran, if I remember rightly, ran at Tremor in the same race that they won last year with El Fabiolo. He won very well. Wasn't like hard on the bridle. It was a job to get him over the line, but the ground was so sticky, horrible, and testing on the day. So he did well to travel far enough, wide enough, and there was not really anything that you'd say was impressive about it, to be honest. If it wasn't Willie Mullins' horse, you'd be like, okay, where does he go next? But if he runs next week, he's got the chance to show that he's a lot better than what he's shown before. The issue would be is he could run next week and he could finish fourth or fifth, and then he looks more like a handicap prospect, and he could have a lot of potential for a race like that. But the vibes at the start of the season were strong that he is a very good horse, so you can't judge him. And he actually, like people were judging him as if he lost that run. He actually won that run. He may need further, so he's entered both in the Ballymore and Albert Bartlett. But at 25-1, you're taking those chances, and we'll wait and see. Hermes Allen, we have at 18-1. Obviously for another win on the day and then win at the festival. And that was an absolute rout the last time we saw him. Obviously he's got course and distance form when beating Music Drive. That race it fell apart, but it fell apart because of him. He just absolutely tore it to shreds. The times were good, the sectionals were good, and it showed he handles the track, which is perfect. But last time out, that was just another level. Like the way he scythed through the heavy ground, people weren't sure whether he'd handle it. And his jumping is just something. It's so impressive. He's like the brave man's game of the hurdling world. He's electric over. And I'm telling you, if he was trained by Willie Mullins and we didn't have this big hoodoo of I can't remember what race it is, not the Tallworth. The last race that he ran, is it the Challow Hurdle? I think it was the Challow Hurdle that he won. Last time out, not having a good record and all the lights, this because the only hole, even Denman should have won it and stuff like this. You forget about that. The races change and everything else. His biggest issue is how competitive this race is. But if he was trained by Willie Mullins and Willie had brought one over and he'd won that race, he'd be sat at the front of that market less than 2-1. and he's currently 10-3, and he's drifting because every time we get a new Willie Mullins horse, everyone thinks he's not going to face Facile Vega, so he gets bigger and bigger. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if he's a bit like Brave Man's Game a few years ago and he's 4-1 on the day. So, but I think he's still one of, if not the strongest contender. But I think this will be a race where you want to have at least 2 or 3 on side. So he's at 18-1, and then the other one we got at the moment is 50-1 Champ Kylie, who is obviously to win his Group 1 last time out, which he did, beating a very good field and beating Irish Point, who was obviously second in the Royal Bond as well. So the form is rock solid. People say he stole it from the front, but what he did was actually he went out in front and he ground it out. And that's what good horses do. So he doesn't strike me as a Ballymore winner, but at 50-1, he's on side. You don't have to worry about him. Obviously, there's going to be horses. One that's massively on most people's lips is Impere Passy. And I think he'll be a huge player here in the Ballymore. And I think he will end up coming here because Willie will send, if Facile Vega wins at Dublin, he'll send him and another, but it'll be like a B or C team player. Whereas the rest of the A team boys will all go to the Ballymore to take on whatever the British have. So he'll spread them apples. So yeah, strong position, and we're in a perfect with a 25-1 shot, 18-1 shot, and 50-1 shot, and the 18-1 shot and the 50-1 shot. Hermes Allen is now 3-1, and Champ Kylie is about 6-1. So we're in a great position, and we will look to strengthen it. Possibly, I'd imagine we'll probably look before that, like something like Goodland, horses like that, for them to win the Dublin Race Festival and then to win the Ballymore. Because Goodland's only got one entry now, and that is the Ballymore. So I'm not saying he is the selection because I want to see the final fields. But if you can get one of those, there's the final one at like say 16 or 20-1, then come the race day, you should be in such a solid position. I mean, it looks good so far, but you need to make sure you're always improving it. Currently, Brown Advisory, we've got Time Hill. Time Hill, obviously, we picked up at 22-1 or 20-1 generally. And we picked that up on debut, thought brilliant, yep, here we go. And then next time out, he was awful behind McFabulous. Like his jumping with everything about it was just terrible. And I thought that's it over. And then at Kempton, he sprung a bit more life into himself. And the thing for him is he's got track form, he's got course that he's obviously won over the trip over hurdles, and he was an elite staying hurdle. It is late in the day to be coming here, but if he's coming to the hill, if he's still in contention, he's going to be a massive player because we know how much he finds off the bridle. Whereas some of these are going to be very inexperienced, and they're only going to be on like maybe their second or third run over fences, but also they're not going to have been in battles like he has. So I'm still not 100% convinced. Like I've seen a lot of people putting them up recently, like in the last few days, people putting them up at like 7-1 or 6-1. Like, I'm not overly convinced on that, but like at the 20-1 that we've got, I think that's perfect. And I will be looking at Brown Advisory pretty hard, but I just want to know what's going on over in Ireland. Like I think Jerry Colon will be added to the team fairly soon, but I want to see where he's going and what the plan is. But of course, I'll put it all on Twitter and on the blog before doing it. Champion Chase, I'll keep it short and sweet. Enigmine at 2-1 and Edwardstone at 7-2. It looked a 2-horse race, and I still think it looks a 3-horse race now. The only other horse I think is Blue Lord. Blue Lord has become a massive contender. I think he's improved. And if you gave me a head-to-head of Edwardstone and Blue Lord, I would not put it past Blue Lord and prove it past him. But at the same time, Edwardstone, you look at his return at Sandown and in the Tingle Creek, and he was phenomenal. Like he absolutely blew that race to bits. And so you'd say he's improved. So I'd say both of them have improved. And if Enigmine was a horse I didn't like, I would have loved having both of those two to take on Enigmine with. But the reality is I don't think Blue Lord will run here. If Enigmine beats Edwardstone good and proper, there's a likeliness Edwardstone may switch to the Ryanair, depending on how badly he's beaten, or he'll stay in this race and they'll both just go for it here. But if they've got Enigmine such a strong hand, there's a strong chance, as I said the other day, that Blue Lord could switch to the Ryanair. But obviously, these are all just my speculation, but those would be the three between me. Obviously, for the Clarence House this weekend, it's on the opposite course. I think it's in the old course this weekend, whereas it's a new course on normal in March. So it will be more stamina testing, and obviously with the supplementary of the Gary Moore horse that won over Christmas, the name escapes me. He will go out and he's going to make it a stamina test. But that will suit Edwardstone because he's a nice hold-up horse. But I just think Enigmine's better than these. So obviously, if Edwardstone was to win, then the Champion Chase mark is going to go on his head. But I'm not heavily invested, to be honest, in that race because I always think it's a bit of a bogey race. But those are the two that I think are absolute standout. And obviously, Blue Lord's the floater. You just got to keep an eye on him, see what's going on. Champion bumper. So we've got Chapeau du Soleil, and we've also got Did I Ask You That? So Chapeau du Soleil, we've got a 16 to 1. And Did I Ask You That? We've got a 33 to 1. So Chapeau du Soleil was the talking horse, the horse we all expected, the one that I still think now you hear Patrick talk about him, and he's very, very bullish. And like he was going through a list of all the horses he's run, but he still came back to this one. He said, "Yeah, this is the one that I'm looking forward to." Like he did everything wrong on debut. He hung, he didn't know what was going on. But when you hear back from the feedback, apparently it was awful weather and conditions. He went out in front. He got everything in his face. He got left alone, and obviously people like Jamie Codd are too smart. They were like, he's clearly not enjoying it. Let's just leave him to hang. No one went up to keep him company. So they just let him do everything wrong. And then obviously come the end, he switched out wide, and then he came round and he found it. He found his gear and found out what was going on. He's skipping the Dublin Racing Festival, and they're looking at going to a much quieter um, a quieter meeting for his next bumper outing. And I've heard everything's fine at home, and we should see him out soon. And for me, he's one that you want to back next time out on the to win that day and to win at the festival, because he'll either flop completely and then it won't be an issue whether he wins at the festival, or he'll look very impressive and then you're already on at the bigger price. So it's a no-brainer, I think, to keep him on side. And like all of these impressive horses, like obviously we had the impressive Simon Manure bumper horse, Is It Me, on the weekend, now 9 to 2. Guys, if you got the 25 to 1s, brilliant. But don't go chasing these 9 to 2s. Just let them go. There are going to be loads of bumper horses like this. The Dublin Racing Festival will throw up probably two superstars in both the mares and the males, and then we'll go somewhere else. And then on like a Tuesday when everyone's not watching, there'll be another superstar from Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott's. There are going to be plenty of these. Do I think that horse has a chance? Of course it does. But at the same time, horses like Envoy Allens and stuff, they had won 3 or 4, and they'd won all the right ticking races. So as in the horses that Elliott had targeted in the past, and he was still boosted to 4 to 1 in the morning for the champion bumper. So people are seizing on this because it's a weak champion bumper, not because this horse looks like the next Facile Vega. So for me, if you miss the prices, then just take a breather and then wait and see what else is going on. That horse isn't. You're not going to wake up and that horse is 2 to 1. Um, and then the champion bumper of my other selection was Did I Ask You That? So Did I Ask You That, I thought, reminded me very much of the Facile Vega mould. This was also put up on YouTube, and I put it up at 33 to 1. But unfortunately, by the time I went in the morning, I went into a shop. I had to go into an actual city to get it because I don't have an online account with Paddy Power. And I went in, I placed my bet. By the time I come back and did the video aired, and the prices was already going. So, and it was strange because it wasn't like there wasn't any sort of reason, like as in there was no other reason other than the fact that I just mentioned it. But I don't have that sort of influence. I can tell you that now. But I have heard recently, though, since is that Frank Hickey really likes this also as well, and that's Did I Ask You That? Who swept around the corner. I think it was at Leopardstown over Christmas. The bumper went completely unnoticed, and came up to one of Gordon Elliott's um, mares, and he had to give £7 to the winner that day. He swept round, went straight past as if they were all standing still, and obviously this was a previous winner. Went probably 10 lengths clear, and then just completely tied up close home, and then was taken over and finished second. But that's perfect because it means then remains a maiden, no penalties. But what was interesting was Patrick said we only got the horse a month ago. He didn't show a lot at home. We hadn't had much time to work with him. So my guess is the reason he's not at the Dublin Race Festival is that they're using this time to have plenty of time to work with him. And then you'll see him somewhere else, nice and quiet, and then he'll come back, and I'm hoping he'll be impressive next time out. And I think this is one that's still going under the radar. 20 to 1 is still available for this. And I wouldn't put you off 20 to 1 at all. There are loads of Willie Mullins horses, but all the money and the hype is going to come for the ones at Dublin Race Festival and the ones at the head of the market now. And I think this one is quietly going under the radar. And I've checked this morning again, and it's still 20 to 1. I wouldn't put anyone off having you've got plenty of time to have a free bet because it's not even entered and no one else is talking about it. So I definitely would have a look yourself. And that's Did I Ask You That? And I'll give Racing Gav credit for that because I was so busy over Christmas, he flagged that up to me. And then when we both looked into it and had a good chat about it, we come to the conclusion the same was that 33s had to be taken. So, but I still think 20s is plenty enough price. You don't want to be getting too involved in the champion bumper at much smaller prices. So anything above 16s is good. I'm actually going to split the rest of my anti-post into another page because this took a lot longer than I thought. So that was the first 2 days covered of my Cheltenham Festival bets so far, and the next video will be the second 2 days. Thank you.